Greetings. I'm Papa Penguin, and here are 5 reasons why using the military won't solve our cartel problems. Uh, so, first off, what's a cartel? For simplicity's sake and clarity, I'm going to use the Department of Justice definition, which defines cartels as large, highly sophisticated organizations composed of multiple drug trafficking organizations and cells with specific assignments such as drug transportation, security enforcement, or money laundering. Uh, Drug cartel command and control structures are typically based outside of the United States. However, they also produce, transport, and distribute illicit drugs domestically with the assistance of various other drug trafficking organizations that are either a part of or in alliance with the cartel. So, in a nutshell, these cartels are a group of independent or independent ish organizations working towards a common goal that have enforced their internal rules through some pretty horrific violence. So, rule number one, no amount of military effort will ever solve the cartel problem. America is the largest consumer of drugs in the world. I'll put a map up here for you guys to look at. Should be over here, a graphic. So, as long as we continue to shoot, snort, smoke, whatever, these products, there is going to continue being a market. All we are doing by using the military is addressing the demands, or I'm sorry, is addressing the supply side of the equation, and we're not addressing the demand side of the equation. So this is at best a partial solution. Problem number two is the level of corruption involved down there. These organizations have been allowed to fester so long, and they have grown so large that they are essentially a parallel government, not a shadow government, a parallel government. Their tendrils extend throughout every level of the government in Mexico and extend here into the United States at the state, local, and probably federal level in some instances. That level of corruption presents a significant issue with conducting work and military work, right? So not only do unit missions get compromised, but the units themselves become compromised. We saw this with the Zetas in Mexico, where the U.S. special operations types went down there and trained. I don't remember if it was policemen or military folks. Trained them in various techniques, tactics, and procedures, TTPs, and how to, conduct military operations. And a good chunk of them said, you know what, we're just going to go work for the cartels, and eventually became a cartel themselves called the Zetas. I don't want to see us grow our own Zetas, number one, which is a real possibility. And if you think it's not, you have not been paying attention to the news articles and the shenanigans our special operations forces here in the United States have been getting into. They have hit the numerous headlines for drug use and abuse, for drug trafficking, human trafficking, even cases of fratricide. So any soft units that we send down there long term are going to see corruption sweep through them like a California wildfire. And then the other thing is that this isn't Colombia when we sent Delta and the DEA down there to go after Pablo Escobar. The level of technology that these cartels have, the level of capability, that the personnel they can bring in. I mean, there are wars going on all around the world the last few years that, excuse me, are encouraging young men to go fight in them that don't really have a dog in the fight. Ukraine, for example, right? When those guys get done fighting over there, they're not going back to working at, you know, a 9 to 5, most of them, right? So uh, cartels can pay very well. And I guarantee you there are some folks down there that are veterans of those conflicts or veterans of working for various private military contractors in, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan. So these cartels also have widespread access across the entirety of the United States. This means having access to family members of military folks that are down there. So if you have units that are deployed down there in the border long term, or you know, doing task force kind of stuff down inside Mexico, there is a very real possibility those family members can become compromised or leveraged. Um, so that's a pretty standard TTP for those cartels when they're dealing with folks in Mexico, right? When they're dealing with police or military for Mexico that aren't corrupt, right? They'll leverage their families. So number three, the cartels are a major part of the economy down there. They are the fifth largest employer in Mexico. You cannot wipe out the fifth largest employer in a country and expect that not to have some horrific effects, right? And unemployment goes up, people start starving. When people are starving, their morals become very, very flexible, and they're willing to do some quite often horrific stuff. Those cartels are estimated to directly employ about 175,000 people across approximately 150 cartels. We cannot, if we waved a wand and we're magically able to hammer those cartels flat, all of that money that outflows from those cartels, all those bribes, all of the, you know, other infrastructure stuff they do to help manage their product lines, that all goes away, right? That has very real impacts on all of the people, the normal people, right? The vast majority of people in Mexico are like the vast majority of people in the United States. They're not criminals doing criminal stuff. They're normal people trying to get by and survive. So if we just vaporize the fifth largest employer, the fifth largest sector of their economy, that has very real and detrimental effects. Number four, all these deportations we're sending down to Mexico. We've sent 11,000 people since Trump took office and deported them to Mexico. Not all of those people are Mexican. Some of them are, you know, coming from other countries. Those people are prime recruits for the cartels. These organizations are very adept, very good at recruiting new personnel. They don't lack for people willing to work for them, right? So if we're fighting them at the same time that we're providing them with new recruits, we're working against each other. That's a problem. So we got to think about that, right? Number five, and this is probably the biggest one, there are a number of nation states who have a presence in Mexico that are not friendly to the United States. Chief amongst them are the Chinese. China has invested billions in Mexico. In 2023, it was something like $477 million in direct foreign investment alone. They buy, I don't know, it's $3 billion in change in copper and copper derivatives from the Mexican economy. And they also sell $9 billion worth of communications equipment in there a year. So China is Mexico's second largest trading partner. And on top of that, they're also using this drug trade, fentanyl especially, as a means of, they being China, as a means of conducting asymmetric warfare against the United States. Um, China is not going to sit on their hands and twiddle their thumbs as we're damaging their economic interest. They will ramp up efforts in support of these cartels to slowly bleed us, right? That's what they want. They want us to bleed out slowly over time. And as public perception or the United States turns, if we start ramping up to doing military operations down there, as public sentiment starts turning towards the United States, China's going to be waiting with open arms to welcome the Mexican government and the Mexican people. So that could even potentially end up with something like some sort of joint Chinese Navy base or Chinese Mexico base there in Mexico on our southern doorstep. That's a threat the United States is not prepared to deal with. Then you got Russia. Russia has a not insignificant diplomatic presence down there. In 2023, they grew their diplomatic presence from like 32 people to 86, I think. And where diplomats go, spies follow, and spies do spy things, right? Spies engage in activities that are detrimental to a country's enemies. In this case, that would most likely take the form of helping the cartels navigate around the U.S. military, right, and U.S. law enforcement. And China or Russia even had one of their ceremonial units sent a detachment of 30 people in 2023 to march in the Mexican Independence Parade. So the Russians also have Russia Today in Espanol and Sputnik World that are down there conducting or making news broadcasts, aka information operations, right? Pumping out propaganda, shaping public perception and opinion. We got Iran that has an embassy in Mexico. I don't think anybody has any illusions about how Iran views the United States. Venezuela's there. North Korea even has an embassy in Mexico. So those are 5 things that I don't think we're thinking about why, or I don't think we're thinking on how they complicate our intent, the president's intent on combating these cartels. Where, we've got numerous foreign state actors that are down there that have a presence that don't want us to solve this problem. We have we're sending a steady stream of potential new recruits for these cartels down there. The cartels are major, the 5th largest employer in the country. They're a major part of the economy. We can't just vaporize them and expect that not to have negative impacts or blowback. The corruption down there is out of hand, and it'll infect any units that are there long term. And lastly, like I said, we can't military our way out of the cartel issue. We are only addressing the supply side of the equation and not addressing the demand side of the equation. So just my thoughts. You guys have anything to say, drop it down in the comments. And thanks for listening. Papa Penguin out.